Builders, backstories, breakthroughs. This is The Journey in Conversation.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Journey in Conversation. In the virtual studio with me today, I am privileged and so grateful to have Ciara Azam with me, who's the founder and CEO of Eventist out of Waterloo. Ciara, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm just great. Thanks. Appreciate you joining me on the show. So you founded Eventist, which is a very interesting company competing in a space with giants. And we're gonna get into that for sure. But let's start out talking about you a little bit. I like to kick things off with just asking, for the folks at home, give us your origin story. What are you all about? What have you done? What are you doing now?
Yeah, so I'm a software developer by trade. So I've only ever worked in software. And then one day, my friend, she was my roommate at the time, said, hey, dance competitions are basically a mess. Like they're just, no one knows where to be, when, can you build something for me? And I can get other organizers using it. So that's how the company kind of started, as like a little pet project. And then it just kind of kept ballooning and growing from there into different spaces where people say, hey, did you know we could probably use it here or here? And now we're way out of our heads because, like you mentioned, it's a very competitive space, very aggressive space. And here we are, and it was never the intention.
So Eventist is, they're all about creating a platform for basically ticketing and for running events. That's really the core thesis of what you folks do, right?
Yeah, it's ticketing. Yeah. And then we kind of take it one step further, again, through the competitions. But the idea of when you buy a ticket, it shouldn't stop there. Recently, I've been telling people every year, and this is true, $1.5 trillion are spent on tickets every year in USD. And 10% of that goes to ticket fees. So people are giving 150 billion USD every year just to ticket fees. And it's definitely a solvable problem. Not only that, but when you buy a ticket, you get a QR code, an email with a QR code, and that's it. And it's just the concept that it can do so much more. You have their information, you can do scheduling and, like all of these other kinds of stuff rather than just a QR code.
There's something, you're right. You think about the big ticketing experiences through pretty much everybody in North America has at one point or another gone to a concert or a festival or a sporting event and bought something through Ticketmaster. And the experience is, from my opinion anyway, where I said it's a little bit lacking in a lot of areas. There's a lot of missed opportunity, and there are a lot of things that are broken about that experience. And other large competing players, and this is true whether it's in Europe or Asia, there's a similar story. And a lot of it, I think, really kind of boils down to the lock-in that you get between the venues and the ticketing platform. There isn't a whole lot of impetus to compete when the scenario is that you're kind of locked into a de facto monopoly because you have to work with one ticketing platform as the venue. It's exclusive, and that's just it. When you were thinking about Eventist, in those early days when your friend said, like, I need a platform to run competitions, was any of that going through your mind, or was it just, this is what's in front of us, let's roll the ball down the road?
Nothing was going on in my mind at the time. She was saying, let's do it just for competitions. Obviously, dance competitions don't use Ticketmaster, which is why, there was that opportunity of, hey, let's get it to do more than just sell tickets. And then as we went into more of like the grassroots festival spaces that also don't use Ticketmaster, then we started to realize just how aggressive of a company they are. And like you said, they have such a monopoly over everything that it doesn't really encourage growth in the space because no one else can compete well. And they themselves don't have any incentive to develop or grow because there's no competition. So that's where we are. We're trying. I don't know if we'll succeed, but we're going to try.
Yeah. Well, the great thing about big, and I say this to my clients all the time who are kind of, not the same as you, but they're facing that specter of competing with really large, well-established organizations. What I say to them is your biggest advantage is that you can adapt quickly to the market. You can listen to customers. You can keep those relationships a whole lot more close than the large established players, competitors in your industry can. And you can adapt to changing conditions and build out features and build out platform parts and an offering, whatever it is, that more closely aligns to what your customers need. So does that mean that you're going to supplant that larger competitor tomorrow and kick them off the horse and you'll take over? No, of course not. But you can absolutely build a viable business by focusing on niches and what's important. Yeah. So it sounds like you folks are kind of rolling down that pathway, and that's what's kind of like fueled your success. You mentioned that dance competitions, they don't use Ticketmaster. Why is that? Just for the folks at home.
Yeah, so generally there's actually a whole documentary on Taylor Swift and Ticketmaster that you can watch. It's interesting. But essentially they own the venues, and then they'll also control the performers. They control the drinks and food that's sold at venues. But then they also go in and they'll have contracts with cities that have venues. And in that contract, it says that they can't use other ticketing platforms, even for non-seated events. So even outside of stadiums, they can't use anyone else. And then like some of the really big festivals, like I'm sure a lot of your listeners are Canadian, so I'll mention Veld. Veld Festival in Toronto, they're pretty big. And Ticketmaster has a lease on the space, like the public park that they run it in. So they actually cannot run Veld Festival. Like we've actually spoken with them. They would like to use us. They can't because of their contract. So you end up in these contracts, and if you want the performers, you have to go with them. So that's where we're actually not in a great place to compete in those spaces, because we don't have the performers and we don't have monopoly over all these venues and public parks and things like that. So that's where we go after smaller events, smaller festivals. And in an industry where you're spending $1.5 trillion a year, you can easily carve out a little space for yourself and still make a good business out of it. And, one day if that monopoly tumbles, we'll be in a great place to kind of move in. A lot of people know about us now. We're kind of growing in popularity where at least people know what we do. And yeah.
Yeah, quick math for the folks at home on $1.5 trillion. What's the old saying? If we can just capture 0.5% of the market, we'll be gold. And 0.5% of $1.5 trillion, like that's enough to write home about. Like that's an okay sized business, especially if you don't have private equity or venture capital money in the mix saying you must grow 10x in 10 years. Like if you've got a privately held business.
For reference, 0.5% of 1.5 trillion is $750 million a year.
A big chunk of change.
It's a big amount of money. And we do not have that, just to clarify, we do not have that big of the market yet, but yeah.
One day, I'm absolutely rooting for you. So these small festivals, I'm kind of curious, what makes these small festivals different in the sense that they can get out of the de facto monopoly? Like, is it that they're in smaller venues in smaller cities that don't have those roll-up contracts, or is there something about the nature of the people in the festival where they can't be locked down to a contract? So like there's a clause that's void or something? Like what I'm curious about is what created this opportunity for you? Because you'd think like massive, Ticketmaster or whoever else, they would put money into locking down everything from top to bottom, no matter the size. So what created the window for you to get in there?
Yeah, so partially it's that, yes, they do require smaller spaces. It will be outdoor festivals, right? Like festivals are known for being outdoor and open spaces. It's a non-seated event. So they just need permission from the city. And there's plenty of space available that's not, these big parks. So they can get access to venues. And with social media and with the rise of like people's knowledge around Ticketmaster, more and more festivals and like artists even are kind of getting the gist of, oh, actually I shouldn't sign with them. Because you can not sign with them, and maybe not so much for artists, but for the actual festivals, you can not sign with them and still get performers to come perform, right? You just don't want to get blacklisted. So you don't want to go from using them to withdrawing from your contract, because then you get blacklisted. But if you just exist on your own and you've never signed with them, then there's nothing to stop you from using whatever ticketing platform you want. You can draw in artists through conventional means. There's, they're able to go perform at various events. They don't have to only perform at Ticketmaster approved venues, so.
Right. Interesting. So it's really like the space that you kind of occupy then is really one where the physical infrastructure isn't really built out like the stadiums with the seats, with like all of the stuff and the security gates and everything, the giant things. We're talking more about like Shakespeare in the Park. We're talking about, busker festivals. We're talking about things that can be held in a municipal park, which I would imagine most cities will not actually put in place an agreement like that with a commercial vendor saying you must use this because it's a part of the public trust. So that kind of complicates things.
You can also have like the best known festival that everyone would resonate with would be Canada Day Festival or the 4th of July Day Festival. It's run by the city in a public park. It's open to the public. And in fact, it's not even a ticketed event. So we do have a couple municipalities that aren't with Live Nation or Ticketmaster that will use us just for the management portion. So they don't even sell tickets through us because it's a free event, but they just use us to get everyone where they need to be, do all their contract signing, do like vendor booth selection and all that kind of stuff. So we have like the infrastructure on the back end to like help you run your festival. And then we had a couple municipalities in Canada come and say, hey, we want to use this, but we don't sell tickets. So we kind of adapted for them. And that way they can use us. So that would be the best known event that everyone can relate to, where it's a free event. There's no seats. You just show up.
Yeah, that paints a picture because, you can imagine if you're going to the Canada Day festivities on Parliament Hill in Ottawa, like it's literally just the hill. Like, there's some food vendors kind of hanging around or whatever. And I'm sure that there's still organization that goes into that, but it's wide open and it's public property. It's part of the public trust.
Well, also there's a lot of organization that goes into it, which is where the idea of just selling a ticket, it can do so much more. Like you can schedule in performers and get them to sign their contracts and, all that stuff that usually someone at the city would have to email back and forth with all these vendors and email back and forth with all these people. And it's just, it could be so much better and no one has come in and made it better. So that's, I guess, what we're trying to do. TBD if we'll succeed, but...
Right. So let's roll this back a second and think about when you first started with dance competitions. Was there something that that your friend kind of brought to the table and said like, hey, ticketing it's important. Like we need to manage that side of it. But was there a conversation also about the management of the venue and the events that kind of took place then, or is that something that you realized over time as you got customers that there was a lot of missing value add that you could use to extend your platform? How did that develop?
So initially, she actually only mentioned management, where she was saying at these competitions, I have no idea what stage I'm supposed to be on. I have no idea where I'm supposed to be when. No one else knows what they're supposed to do. There's no music upload. So like when you upload like your backing tracks for your performances, she's like, right now we have to go hand a USB to the DJ, and the DJ literally has like a line of USBs that he's supposed to play at these competitions. So she's like, can we just get a management tool in here to like make it less messy? And my take there is that's where I said, okay, then we need to do the ticketing, because then we have everyone's registration info and it's all in one place. We don't have to sell tickets and then port all that information into a management software. Like, let's just make it one and the same. So you buy your ticket and then we email you a copy of your live portal and your schedule so you can see where you need to be and you can upload your music. And then the DJ has his own portal so he can see all the music, So it's kind of, she mentioned management, and then when we were going through it, we were like, it kind of only makes sense if you can do it end to end. So then we have to support the ticketing as well.
Yeah, and that makes a ton of sense. Like that's a really good example of a product moat. And going back to when we were talking about competing against large providers, like the resources that a Live Nation or a Ticketmaster has to bring to bear, has at their disposal, they could probably copy what you're doing, but would they, especially for the segment that you're in? So by kind of doing this, by extending that experience from the front side of it, like the ticketing, back into the management of the event and the venue, and I assume you have a couple of different configurations for different kinds of events, like it's not all just the same.
Yeah, so it's configurable in the sense of you can create stages, open and close them as much as you want on the same day or multiple days. And then you can kind of drag and drop activities in there, assign them to people. And then you can add everyone behind the scenes. So like in a separate view, you just see the events that you scheduled in, and then you can start adding like DJs and coordinators and security. And then everyone gets copies of their portal. Anytime you're talking about software, I get this question so much. What's stopping other people from copying you? Nothing. Nothing. Like I could build Instagram, right? And anyone could. You could rebuild any software. There's nothing stopping other people from building it. I do think we built it really well, and it took us a really long time to build it well. So those are two things, but obviously it's not impossible for someone else to hop in and copy it. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like you're right. But if you think about the David versus Goliath, like the you versus Ticketmaster thing, and we kind of take the small event venue, like the competition kind of thing, and say, okay, we're Eventist. We have this end-to-end management solution that works for festivals that are of a certain size that take place outside public property, et cetera, et cetera. For Ticketmaster to take that management model in the software and say, okay, I'm going to apply this to all of my stuff too, and I'm going to say to the amphitheater, I'm going to say to like Molson Park or any other place, the Apollo Theater in the States or something, I'm going to say to them, like, you can now use our end-to-end management software for your events. That immediately cuts out the revenues from the venue for doing that, because they sell a lot of services to the organizers of concerts to manage all of that stuff. And that's not good business. Even if you have like these ironclad exclusive contracts between Ticketmaster and the venue, there's not a whole lot of incentive for them to say, yeah, we'll try out your new toy because it'll make us less money and you more money.
Yeah, there's that. And there's also like behind the scenes, I kind of like to explain it like you're building a house. So Ticketmaster and a lot of these other companies, when they start out, they have a very small foundation because they're focused just on the ticketing. And that means that they can only go up so high, so to speak. Whereas within the space, because we were focused initially on the management section, we have such a versatile, like a much wider foundation to build up from. So there is also the section that it would like intrinsically be harder for them to add in those management services and to do it in a good way, because it would involve messing with all of their current infrastructure. So it would be like difficult. It's not impossible. Nothing's impossible. But it might not work as well. A good example I like to say is like Microsoft products, because they moved from their like desktop mode. Everyone hates like Microsoft Teams or they just don't work well on the web, and it's because they were never designed to be on the web. And then they're like trying to port it over, but because that wasn't part of the initial design, it never went well, and they're still not good. Like they're still janky. Anyone who uses it for work, like it logs you out, and it just so they'll likely end up in that similar place, kind of like Canva versus Photoshop. Photoshop online is awful. I love Photoshop on desktop. On web, it's not great. Canva did a great job because they designed it from the get-go for that purpose. Yeah. And no amount of work on Photoshop side is going to make them catch up to Canva in that area.
Yeah. And you think about the business incentives to do so as well. Like, what's the incentive for you to cannibalize a part of your business to chase something that someone else is already doing well enough when you've got a business that's big? And that's another thing where when you're a small business and you're competing in the same general category as a very, very large established player, like that's the reason that you can compete and you can win, So like good for you folks. I wanted to talk a little bit too about, you mentioned when we were chatting before that you've been accepted into an accelerator. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we were accepted into the University of Waterloo's Velocity Accelerator. You can go with, there was perhaps some nepotism because I'm an alumni from the University of Waterloo. I don't know if that's true for sure, but we applied, we were rejected initially, and then I applied again and we were accepted the second time. And I did ask what made them accept us the second time, and apparently they really liked in the second application, I put in, I suck at sales and I want to get better. And that was my application. It was like, why do you want to be here? I was like, I suck at sales. I'm really bad at selling to people, and we need to get better. And they were like, okay. And so, yeah, we got accepted, and it's been like 2 weeks now. Yeah.
That's it's very powerful when you can be humble about what you're bad at. Because I feel like, you know, as founders, there's this pressure that we often face to kind of be put together, well polished, know what we're doing. Like when you're talking to investors, you have to be, you know, the picture of confidence. If there's anything where you kind of express doubt, like it's less likely that you're going to further those conversations and get, you know, seed funding or Series A or something, kind of done and under your belt. But at the same time, like you do yourself a disservice by not acknowledging your weaknesses, both, you know, individually and from an organizational standpoint. So being able to say, like, I suck at sales, help me be better at sales, like that's kind of a point in your favor, right? And I'm sure that that when they came back to you and they said, like, yeah, you know, we liked that you were humble about that and said that you sucked at sales, like that's kind of the reward for it. So you're 2 weeks in now. What does the rest of your time at Velocity kind of look like? Like, is this, you know, a longer term program? Is it an intensive boot camp? Aside from being better at sales, what do you hope to get out of it?
So there's like essentially a trial period for 4 months, after which you get like fully accepted or rejected, if that makes sense. So you can stay there long term until you have 10 employees. And then they kind of say, okay, you're big enough to have your own office space and whatnot. So there's no like time limit on how long you can stay there. But for the first 4 months, your goal is to just show that you're trying hard and that you're following through on everything they're telling you to do. So they just want to see, you know, consistency and effort, to make sure that you're taking it seriously. Yeah, and up until now, it's been obviously a lot of sales advice, a lot of practicing pitching, and that's where my little pitch of, you know, $1.5 trillion are spent every year on ticketing just to try to highlight the problem. That's where that came from. So you can thank them for that inspiration. And yeah, I've just been going through practicing the pitching, and also very much, I'm so bad at talking about what our software does because I'm a developer, right? So I just want to tell everyone what it does. I'm like, I want to tell you all about the features. I want to tell you about how we built the features. I want to tell you about how secure everything is. Turns out no one cares about any of that. So it's just been a lot of advice of, you know, tell people how much money you're going to make them. And I have to get over how sleazy that makes me feel, even if it's true. Like, it just feels so sleazy to tell people, you know, you're going to make so much more money. You're going to save so much more time. Like, it's true. I know it's true. I just hate saying it. So got to practice saying that and saying it in a way that maybe comes off as less sleazy.
Yeah, there's also that intersection, and I know what you mean. I struggle with a lot of the kind of ick that comes with capitalism and running and growing a business. Sometimes, like I struggle with that a lot myself. But I find that when you can really hone in on your why, like your purpose for doing what you're doing, and then translate that into the benefit for the person on the other side of the table, that that icky feeling starts to melt away a little bit, because then you're not really doing it to just make money and to fuel the cycle of ick. You're more so doing it because you have like a mission and a purpose. Have you thought through what your purpose personally is with Eventist? Like what's really driving you about this?
And this is where I've actually clashed with people at Velocity, is because their goal is to help you as a founder to make money, right? And sure. I keep getting told by everyone to raise our prices. And ultimately, the why of why I decided to go into the festival space is because of that $150 billion being spent on ticket fees. It doesn't need to be. It's affecting the end consumer. Everyone hates it. And ultimately, everyone's sad. We need to get out more. We need to connect more. Events are the way that we do that. People go to concerts, they go to festivals, they go to even small events. And you shouldn't have to pay $7 in fees just to go out and have a good time. Like, that's just ridiculous. So I think my why as a human being is I would like to connect the world in an ethical manner. So at least once or twice a week, someone's like, you got to raise your price. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. Like, we need other ways. They're like, you'll make money quicker. I'm like, next, we're not doing that. So that's I guess the why for me, but I don't know how to convey that, especially because event organizers don't care. A lot of them just do not care that fees are being passed to the user, which is why you need to lead with, it'll make you money, it'll save you time, those kinds of points of like what's in it for them, because they don't view lower ticket fees as something that's in it for them because it's being passed to the end consumer, which is really unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, as someone who bought, I bought 5 tickets to go see Toronto FC versus Ottawa Athletica in early May. And like I bought the tickets this far out because I knew that like the resellers wouldn't have gotten into the mix. And I've got, you know, my wife and some other friends who are like, we like football. We're Canadians, so we're not crazy like the Europeans, but we like football. We like going to matches. And I bought those 5 tickets for about $175. Like the price was really good for a sporting event, but you know, bought them in February for May, right? Processing fees. When I got through to the end checkout, and it gives you the itemized kind of breakdown of, you know, what you paid for the tickets, what you paid for the fees, what you paid for taxes. The processing fees worked out to about $45 for 5 tickets. And coming from an e-commerce background in, you know, consumer electronics, that to me was absolutely crazy, because that's much higher than your basic fees that you're going to be charged on a transaction through like a Stripe or another gateway like that. So the first thing that comes to my mind every time I see that is, why is the fee so high?
It doesn't.
That's above and beyond your gateway fee.
No, it's so high. And that's the other one. Like we have flat fees per ticket sold. And the whole reason for that is because it costs us the exact same to run the live portals and do emails and do text notifications, regardless of whether or not the ticket was $100 or $20. It costs us the exact same. So we should just have flat fees per ticket sold. And you know, they do it because they can, because they have a monopoly. That's the answer.
Right. And this, you know, economists, like our prime minister, he's an economist. They love to talk about how the only thing that really controls prices in the long run is competition. You know, the imbalance between supply side and demand side of any particular product causes prices to go up. The only thing that really causes prices to go down is competition. So when we have policies in place that don't mandate or make it a little bit easier for there to be competition, you see things like this happening. And like the big mechanism, like the link there is really like, you know, the venues and the large ticketing providers have those exclusive tie-ups. There's no competition whatsoever. So it's like, it's not good for consumers. And you're right that people do less, I think, because of the inflation in prices on those ticketed events. Like I remember going to, in 2002, when I was in university, I went to Edgefest, like in Barrie, outdoor festival. Awesome rock music, alt rock, and I paid at that time like $35 cash for a ticket for like 3 days or whatever that I was there. And it was the same sort of thing with my friends. Like, you know, we could all go for $35-40 and have a fantastic time. Well, what would that cost now? 200, 300, 500 for the same thing? And it's not like there's more money in people's bank accounts. So like we're just choosing to do less.
Yeah, we're choosing to do less. And the fees, I'm actually debating trying to, because we do let people pass fees to the end user. And I'm trying, because our fees are so low, I'm really trying to push people to absorb them, because everyone hates having that little added fee when they go to check out. So I'm even considering grabbing stats on the abandoned carts and like putting it right in front of their face of like, this is how many people abandoned their cart once they saw the end fees, to try to really push people. I'm like, you know, we're not charging a lot, like just absorb it and make the ticket $5 more expensive or whatever, just round up to the nearest 5, you know? So we're debating doing that, because I do think it would help with sales. It would help people. Like imagine a ticket fee free Ontario, where everywhere you buy a ticket, everything's just included and you just go to checkout and the price that's listed is the price that it is. Like that's how it should be. Yeah. So again, a lot of big dreams here, a lot of big dreams.
Yeah, it's you know, it's funny you mentioned the price you see is the price it should be. You know, we grew up in Canada, right? So we're used to seeing the price for something on the shelf be one thing, and then we get to the checkout, the register, and HST or QST or whatever is added on top. So you know, your $20 at the register is more than that. when you go to check out. I only learned probably 6 or 7 years ago that there are 2 countries in the world that prices that way with taxes on top. Every other country in the world includes the taxes in the purchase price that's listed on the store shelf. Everybody else uses VAT. We have this weird system of sales tax on top of the regular price, and so do the Americans. I think that our system came from theirs, but it was really eye-opening to me because you don't think that what you see is normal until you see everybody else's normal. And then you start to look at it through a very, very different perspective. And this is probably the same. I'd imagine there are places where you don't see those ticketing fees kind of stacked on top of the ticket price.
You do. So because Ticketmaster is an American company and a lot of the upper level management are actually Canadian, but we'll call it North American. So the bulk of them are North American. So they kind of enforce that on the rest of the world. So even when you go in concerts in like England and stuff, even though at the grocery store everything's included, they still have ticket fees like as an added on thing at the end.
Weird.
So we're kind of like imposing that on, as the 2 countries that do that, we're imposing that on the rest of the world. And it's worse. It's objectively worse. So
weird.
Yeah.
That is really strange. But I suppose if the kind of core technology and like the business, it grew out of here and expanded overseas, like that kind of makes sense.
And I think it's also one of those, because most of the platforms allow you to like absorb it or pass on fees. So that toggle exists across most platforms. But I think it's also when, like when all of your support staff, if everyone's encouraging you to turn that toggle on, then people will turn it on. It's like, oh yeah, don't worry about the fees. Now you can use the software for free. Like it's free for you to use it because the user's paying the fee. But they don't realize that ultimately users have budgets, right? If my budget's $40 and then I go to check out and it's 60, I'm going to be like, okay, I can't buy this now. So like they really should just, list what it is.
Yeah. And it's really tough to kind of take that problem and nip it in the bud too. Because if you think about, we think about like demand destruction. Demand destruction it's a phenomenon that plays out in the aggregate. You don't get demand destruction really ever rooted from one particular company or one particular product. It's more that the kind of practice of price inflation over time makes the entire category of products less appealing to consumers. So they just stop using them and buying them. And how do you take that message and go to one individual organizer and say, okay, if you continue to kind of participate in this system that makes price inflation kind of ramp up, then eventually people will stop going to these things and you'll be included in people not going to these things because you're part of that group. When all they see in front of them is, I've got 1,000 tickets to sell and I don't see the impact of that on this. So why are we talking about it, right? Like, are there any conversations that you have with your customers about those bigger picture issues, and then how do they take them? Like, do they respond well to them, or is it all just like, no?
Yeah. So I do kind of aggressively try to get people to absorb fees and kind of change their mindset. And this is kind of how I pitch it. I say, these other companies charge so much money that if they're saying, hey, sell your tickets through us, it's going to cost you $40 per ticket sold. No one's going to say yes to that, right? So the only way they can sell it is by convincing people to pass those fees on to the end user. And I kind of put it as, like for our general ticketing software, we charge like 85 cents Canadian per ticket sold, flat fee, where I'm like,
Wow.
just absorb it. It's 85 cents. Like just absorb the fee yourself. And then we also have bulk pricing as well. So if you're selling tons, it automatically decreases per ticket sold. So I'm like, just absorb it and you'll be all right. Like it's not going to hurt. It's a lot easier to convince someone to do that when the value is low. I actually have a harder time convincing them to absorb the credit fee as well, because the credit fee is a percentage. So if you have like a $300 ticket, that can be like quite a bit. But then again, I say, okay, then just make the ticket a little bit more expensive than what you were initially planning. And that way, at least, no one gets surprised when they check out. So that's been going okay. Obviously, you can't stop people. If they want to turn it on, they turn it on. But I do try to do my best.
It would be really interesting. And you mentioned this at the start of our chat, that you were thinking about looking at the conversion rates in cart and seeing if there was like, a statistically significant difference between
Yeah,
having it on and
there
having
is.
it off. It would be really interesting if you could measure that network wide and start to determine the price elasticity curve, the impact that basically passing on the fees has on sales. Because then you can take that number and you can start to make a business case to people even during your onboarding, in kind of an automated way through your product platform. You can start to make that case and say, hey, if you keep this turned off and you absorb the cost, then based on what we know about our network, you will sell 7.5% more volume.
Yes. So I do think we were considering doing that just on a case-by-case basis, but you're right, we could make it an average across everyone.
Yeah.
And then just have that be a default. We're kind of playing with that right now and just debating whether or not it's wise to do that, because now suddenly you have a ticketing platform with an opinion. It's not just a software. You now have a software with an opinion, and I don't know if people really want that. And it's my opinion, right? Like so I don't know. So we're on the fence about that, but I think we probably will do it because it's my company and we can do what we want. And I do like the idea of having a world, like I said, big grand vision, but I would like to see a world where people can just go places for less and it's easy and you're never surprised with like a ticket fee. The
Yeah.
other day I went to a small event with my kids and it was run through Eventbrite, and the ticketing made up over 30% of the total cost. And I'm like, this is just ridiculous. Like there's no reason for this to be this way. And it was because you buy, like, they have a per ticket fee that's flat plus a percentage. So if you buy 4 tickets, it's like $1.79 flat fee per ticket plus a percentage. So immediately, if you're buying 4 tickets, that's $8 in fees,
Yeah.
plus a percentage, and it's just too much. So.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And we talked a little bit about kind of the ick of capitalism, but this might be an example where there are aligned incentives that you can come up with, like the measurement of the impact on absorbing the fees or not on volume. Like number one, if you measure that across your entire network, the data is going to be more reliable, right? Because you've got a larger sample size. But number two, you can also take your personal opinion, which is kind of based in like, this is too expensive for people and we need like more community in the world. You can start to say like, hey, if you keep those fees off and keep the ultimate price point lower, then you will sell more, ergo you will make more money. So like, I've got a little bit of the ick. It doesn't make you feel great, but it's for a good purpose. Maybe a part of what you're kind of got in front of you is finding those points of aligned incentive where you can make it make sense for both customers and for their customers and for you in terms of your ethics and your moral position on all this.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, came on the podcast and we're getting business advice. This is great. Free business advice. I think that's a good idea. I wonder, I'll talk to the CTO, but I think he'd probably be okay giving reduced, like even more reduced pricing if you keep it off. I wonder if we can do that. Like you get an even lower fee per ticket sold if you turn it off. I wonder if we could do that. We probably can.
Yeah, I know it's funny. Like usually this podcast is it's all about the guests. Like, we talk about their story, we talk about their journey, but I'm just so bloody fascinated by what you're trying to do that I can't help but ask these like really itty bitty questions about the business and how it's operating and what you want.
It's all good because this is where, like I mentioned, if you ask me questions about technology or how to build stuff, that's what I can do. I'm very open. I'm not an expert in marketing or sales or anything like that. The only thing I feel like I'm okay at is customer support. I think I'm a pretty patient person. I'm happy to sit on a call and help people if they need help. That's the only thing outside of development where I do it and I'm like, okay, I think I'm doing all right at this part. But aside from that, I'm open to all advice. So yeah.
Well, let's veer back and talk about Eventist and talk about you and talk a little bit about the future. So you're in the accelerator velocity right now. That's kind of going to run the first phase of it, through the next 4 months. But what do you have on the horizon for Eventist? Like, what's coming up that you're really excited about? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so we're running a really big salsa bachata competition in Toronto. And we've had other competitions that use us, but they're so far away that I can't really travel to go see it in person. But in
You get
this
to
case,
go.
I'm gonna go in person. I'm gonna film, and salsa dancers and bachata, like the adult dancers, we'll just go with adult dancers,
Mhm.
are just so beautiful. Like I've
Mm.
been to one competition before and everyone is just so beautiful. Like they have they've put so much effort into how they look for this competition. And you just walk in and like everyone looks like a model. And then you get to watch them perform and it's so exciting. So I'm really looking forward to going and filming. And also, you get to, I'll help with the ticket scanning and kind of be in the trenches, and you get to see how you can improve the
Mhm.
product as well. So I do like to do that because right now we're building everything in theory. So we're building it based off of what we think people want. But when you're actually doing it, it helps to, when you hit those bumps where you're like, oh, I really wish it did this. And I'm like, okay, well, make a list. So I always have a little notepad whenever I go to in-person events and I'm literally just writing down it needs to do this, it needs to do this. So I'm really I'm looking forward to that event. And if you're in Toronto, you can go out and see that they have like a performance night 3 nights in a row where
Mm.
some of the best salsa dancers in the world will be there performing. You can watch them. So
That's really cool. Okay, I'm gonna get the link to that from you. And folks at home, if that sounds really interesting, like we'll put it in the show notes. Like, go buy a ticket
yeah,
and
for
go
sure.
hang out
I
and
will
watch some
warn you, it
salsa.
is expensive. But it's kind of
Uh,
like a Cirque du Soleil event kind of thing. Like you're paying for their expertise of bringing in all these expensive dancers. But if that's up your alley, it's a great event. It is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, you don't get like world champion salsa performers into Toronto in the middle of like February when it's cold for 650. I just don't think that works. Like under $10, maybe not.
yeah. It's yeah, but yeah, for sure. I'll send you the link, and if people want to go check it out, they're welcome to. Yeah.
Cool. Um, let's veer into kind of another area where I like to kind of wrap up the show and talk a little bit about learnings. So, thinking about where you are today with Eventist, is there any advice that you would pass on to your past self when you were first starting the business? If you could do that, what would you want to tell yourself back then?
Yeah, so I would tell myself sooner to try and reaching out for help from people that know what they're doing. So in the beginning, I tried out in terms of like sales and marketing. I tried out everything I could think of where I was reading online. I'm like, okay, I'll try this. I'll try this. This book tells me to do this. And I just kind of kept trying until I found what was working. And that's great, but it also took a really long time. And having joined Velocity, they told me in the first 2 sentences what I should be doing. And a lot of it was what I had figured out through like running into brick walls. So, it made me think, oh shoot, we should have joined this so much sooner, or tried harder to get in, to get that advice and because there's many different ways to market, is what I've learned. And it depends what industry you're in, right? So like I tried cold email. Cold email doesn't work well for festivals because they're all high all the time and they're all, like they're all on Instagram, right? So that's where you have to target them on Instagram. And I was, following these sales books that are like cold call these people and cold email these people. I'm trying to do it and they're just like, even if they answer the phone, they're high as a kite. Like this is not working. So then you kind of have to consider who are you selling to and try to gear towards that. And within like a week at Velocity, they onboarded and they were like, "What? Why are you doing? Like, why did you try cold email? No, that's not the play." And so I think if you try your best to find people in the areas that you don't know what you're doing, whether it's
Mhm.
marketing or software. I've seen so many companies build out software um, in a poor way, and then they get stuck later on as they try to scale. So reach out to people who know what they're doing. That's actually quite hard to find, but do your best. Find a developer and say, hey, who's the best developer you know? And then ask to talk to them.
Okay, I think I want to bring like a controversial statement into the room now and ask you, what do you think about vibe coding?
No. So I think it's great at certain things. So I use like the very expensive Claude Code subscription. It's like $360 a month Canadian. It does a great job at certain things. If you're writing unit tests, it does a great job. You need to build your infrastructure from scratch. So you need to consider, like, in software, you're going to have your database, right? Which is where you store information. And then how you set up those tables is called your schema. You need a really nice schema and a really nice structure for your APIs. You need to do that by hand. AI does a horrible job. But once you have that, then you can start to delve into the vibe coding space a little bit. But you have to review everything. Look at everything it's generating. Ask yourself, does it make sense? Sometimes it will randomly just touch files for no reason. Like, you have to review everything and then send it to someone else for their review as well. And those should always be human, like, at least for now. I don't know in 10 years, but for right now, that's my take, is you need your core infrastructure to be done by someone who knows what they're doing if you want it to be scalable and not just like break 5 years down the line. That's my take. Yeah.
That's good advice. That's really good advice. I've experimented with a little bit of vibe coding and a little bit of kind of handing off workflows to agentic constructs, and I've been less than impressed at the output of the work. I find that particularly when I'm looking at code, I find that I have to spend more time refactoring and correcting than I would have if I just wrote it myself from scratch.
Yeah. And that's where I think it depends what you're doing. If you're doing unit testing where you have one unit test and you're just saying, okay, copy this for all of these different cases, it's going to be faster than you 100%, and it's going to do a good job. But for other stuff, especially if you're giving it like big tasks, you're right. If it does a poor job in terms of its like overall structure, then you just have to rebuild it. So I'd say, like, do it small scope. If you're vibe coding, do little chunks at a time, always review it. And that way, at the very least, if you don't like what it did, you can just say, no, that's not what I meant. Here's what I meant. And then it tries again. Whereas if you have a massive scope and you do that, it can't always redo it. And then you just end up with like a mess. So, yeah,
that's really good advice. Let's end off the show with giving you an opportunity to practice your elevator pitch. Why don't you tell the folks all about Eventist in, that 30-second spot, and give us, where to get a hold of you, and where you hang out, and how people can connect with you if they want to talk more.
Yeah, so the most general case, I think most listeners here are, if you run an event, it's probably a general ticketed event where you don't need all the fancy scheduling. And we have a software for that. So it would work like Eventbrite or any other ticketing platform, but we have in-person Canadian support. You'll never have call centers or anything like that. We'll help you set up the account and answer any questions you have now or in the future. You can reach us on Instagram or on LinkedIn. On Instagram, it's just eventist.ca, which is the same as our website.
All right. Ciara Azam, thanks so much for joining us on The Journey in Conversation. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. That was a great chat.
Thanks for tuning in to The Journey in Conversation. If you liked this episode, follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one. More builders, more breakthroughs, coming soon.